Hey, fourth grade, it's Mrs. Johnson here. Ready to learn today? All right, well, today in math, we're talking about open sentences. Now, open sentences in math, they're not like sentences when we're reading with a bunch of words. They're more like number sentences. So instead of words, you have numbers. Open sentences in math, open sentences are math sentences, expressions or equations which are missing a number or have a variable standing in place for a number. Now, a variable is a word you might not have heard before. Variable is a letter or symbol used in math to represent or show something unknown. And so sometimes you'll see variables like this. It'll be an A, or even it could be B or C. Sometimes maybe it's a triangle or a circle, or it's just a blank. And that means that these things are unknown, so they use these as symbols instead of the number. So today we're in our open sentences. We're going to be solving open sentences, but also looking at some other things too. So the first thing we're going to do is just go through some examples. These are open sentences. It says find the missing number. So if I look at number 1, it just has a blank. So blank times 7 equals 49. Blank times 7 equals 49. Now, another way I could write this is blank equals 49. What's the opposite of multiplication? That's right, division. So 49 divided by 7 is, well, I know, it's 7. So I'm going to put my 7 up here in the blank, because that's what my blank means, is a 7. So 7 times 7 equals, that's right, it's 49. All right, number 2, I've got a box. Box times 8 equals 32. Well, you might be saying, I know what something times 8 equals 32, but let's just make sure we double check. So I can rewrite this. It can be box equals 32. I always put my bigger number first, or the number that's on the other side. And what's the opposite of multiplication? That's right, it's division. So it'd be 32 divided by 8. Now, if I had 8 divided by 32, that would not make sense. So make sure you write it correctly. 32 divided by 8, well, that's a basic fact. I know that's a 4. So this box should be 4. So I'm going to plug in my missing number. So 4 times 8, oh, that equals 32. Perfect, it works. Now down here, I've got 10 times something equals 10. So 10 times this circle equals 10. I'm going to rewrite this problem. Circle equals 10. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. Divided by 10. Well, what's 10 divided by 10? Well, that's 1. So this circle should be a 1. Let's double check. 10 times 1 equals? It equals 10. Awesome. Last one. 100 divided by a box equals 10. 100 divided by a box equals 10. So I know if I do 100 or 10 times my box, that's going to equal 100. That's one way to think about it. And so I'm going to do 10 times a box equals 100. Well, I could figure that out. Boom, 10 times 10. 100 divided by 10. Hey, that equals 10. Voila, look at that. All right, find the missing number to make the sentence true. So blank times 4 equals 8 times 6. Well, I better figure out, since I have my two numbers on this side, I better figure out what 8 times 6 is. 8 times 6 is 48. So what times 4 equals 48? Another way I could write it is 48 divided by 4 equals something. Remember, multiplication is the opposite of division. Well, I know 12 times 4 gets me 48. So 12 times 4 equals 8 times 6, because both sides now equal 48. Let's go to number 6. 9 times 5 equals 15 times a box. Well, I'm going to solve this side first since I have both my numbers. 9 times 5 is 45. So 15 times what equals 45? Another way I could write this is 45 divided by 15 equals the box. I might have to count this one out. Well, I know 15 times 2 is 30. I'm getting close. I'm going to try 15 times 3. Be 15, 30, 45. So 15 times 3, that 3 is what's missing from the box. So then both sides now equal 45. All right, now number 7, it says solve for A. So I see my A right here. I have to figure out what A equals. So I always go down here and go A equals right before I start. And I'm going to put whatever the number A equals. So A times 3 equals 4 times 6. Well, I know 4 times 6 is 24. So I have to do A times 3 equals 24. Well, what times 3 gets me 24? Or 24 divided by 3 gets me A. A equals 8. Good job, because this should be 8 times 3 right here. So if I have a variable or a letter like that, I always have to put A equals 8. So the person who's looking at this knows my answer. Let's look at number 8. 20 divided by 4 equals C divided by 2. Well, I better figure out what 20 divided by 4 is first. 20 divided by 4, that's 5, equals C divided by 2. Well, what divided by 2 also gets me 5? I could rewrite this and have it be 5 times 2 equals C, because I know multiplication is the opposite of division. 5 times 2 is 10, so C should equal 10. Let's double check. 5 equals 10 divided by 2. Is 10 divided by 2 5? Yep, it sure is. All right, so that's solving some open sentences. I'm going to go on the back of my paper here. Now, sometimes we might have to use the distributive property to solve. The distributive property lets you multiply a sum, an answer to an addition problem, by multiplying each add-in, numbers in an addition problem, separately, and then add the products. So let's go through an example, because sometimes definitions don't make sense to me. For an example, 15 times 7. Well, that's kind of tricky, because 15 is a bigger number. I can break 15 up into 10 plus 5, and do 7 times 10 plus 5, which is the same as 7 times 10 and 7 times 5. I know 7 times 10 is 70, and 7 times 5 is 35. Add those together, I get 105. So 15 times 7 equals 105. So let's use the distributive property to find the missing number. So if I look down here, I've got 7 times 10 plus 7 times 2 equals 7 times blank plus 2. Well, if I just look on the other side of my number sentence, what number is missing over here? It's a 10, right? 7 times 10 plus 7 times 2 is the same as 7 times 10 plus 2. There we go. 6 times 5 plus 6 times 10 equals 6 times 5 plus blank. Well, what number is missing from over here? That's right, it's a 10. Look at 5 and 10. 6 times 5 plus 10. Notice how my numbers are in parentheses. That means I add these numbers first. All right, now I've got a different one. 8 times 3 plus 8 times 4 equals 8 times a box. Interesting. Well, I've got my 8 from over here. That means I have to deal with these two numbers. And I'm going to add them together. 3 plus 4 is 7. So 8 times 3 plus 8 times 4 is the same as 8 times 7. Okay? All right, next problem. 3 times 10 plus 3 times 7 equals 3 times A. A equals blank. Well, we just did that same thing up here, so we've got our 3, so we can cross that out. So now I got to deal with these other two numbers. 10 plus, should be 17. So A would equal 17. Okay, all right, moving on. 7 times 14 equals 7 times 4 plus 7 times blank. Interesting, I've got a 14 and I've got a 7 and I've got a 4, but then I'm missing something. So if I rewrite this 14 into expanded form, it would be 4 plus 10. I've already got the 4, so now I need the 10. 7 times 14 is the same as or equals 7 times 4 plus 7 times 10. Two more. 8 times 5 equals 5 times 4 plus 5 times something. Interesting. So I've got 8, I've got my 5, so I don't need to worry about that. See, my 5's here. So I need something with this 4. Well, that's got to come from the 8. So 4 plus what gets me 8? That's right, it's 4. So I just need another 4 in there. Let's check our work. 8 times 5, I know that's 40. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 5 times 4, that's 20 again. 20 plus 20, hey, that equals 40. It works out. All right, 4 times C equals 4 times 10 plus 4 times 6. Well, I've got my 4, so I don't need to worry about the 4's. But now I got to deal with this 10 and this 6, so I have to add them. 10 plus 6 is 16. So C equals 16. So 16 goes right there. All right, fourth graders, that was a lot of information today. So that was using the distributive property and a little bit of information about open sentences. You can see how sometimes open sentences, you can use the distributive property to help you solve them. Or sometimes you just have to know your multiplication and division facts. So keep practicing those too. All right, fourth grade, well, get out there and keep learning.